Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Feedback with Pryme. I'm Laura Andradas, Marketing Lead at Pryme Global, and together with Aski Halls, Product Manager at Pryme Global, we'll show you what's new across our solutions. We'll also take a deep dive into sales prices, and at the very end of the session, we'll have some time for the Q&A. So let's see what's new for advanced projects. The first update has to do with multi-customer billing. So when projects involve multiple customers, you can now specify the bill to and sell to customers per project task line. Besides that, you can use currency with subcontracts. And as you already know, with advanced projects, you can split timesheets for the last week of the month into two separate timesheets. This way, you can begin billing the previous month straight away. Well, now you can prorate the salary, adding the salary factor to the header, and also you can define your split week with the split week maintenance. Let's move forward to our Pryme applications, and we are starting with Pryme Fund Management, our fund and grant accounting solution for Business Central, where you can now process cash refunds through the payment journal for previously received funds. Besides that, you can now mark customers to separate funders from non-funding customers. And specific users can edit the expiry and effective date on fund ledger entries. Lastly, you can now add notes to the fund allocation view. And our last Pryme application for today, Pryme AP Automation, also our newest one, where we have improved the default settings in the setup. We are having a few live demos during this month of July, so you're most welcome to scan the QR code and register for one of those. And if those timings are not suitable for you, or if you're thinking about a specific case where you would like to discuss it further with us, please set up a one-to-one demo. That's it from my side for now, and over to you. Thank you, Asken.
Thank you, Laura. And so let's jump right into the demos. For this release, there is not a lot of big features. It is many minor adjustments, and they are noted in the release notes, but there's a few things that we should have a look at and try to see how they work. So starting out with advanced projects, we have now the multi-customer billing. Progressors have had support for billing multiple customers for many years, but it has worked in a slightly different way. It has been what we call a customer split, where a project could be split up percentage-wise, and that would be for the entirety of that project. So if I open up a demo project like this, what we have had for a long time is on the project card, you could define a customer split where you split up the billing into multiple parts. So a certain percentage for each of multiple customers. And every invoice would then be split up percentage-wise, maybe 50-50 for two customers or 20, 30, 50 for three customers, etc. The exception to that was with scheduled billings, where scheduled billings allowed you to specify a customer on each of the scheduled billings. So there you could be very specific in who would pay for that exact amount when you're working with fixed price billing. We're now introducing a third model for the splitting up of billing to multiple customers, and that can be found here on the invoice tab of the project card, and we call that the task billing method. This is connected to the method that comes with standard BC, which is also for task billing, but because we have these additional methods, we needed some extra layers of logic. So on a project, you can switch from one customer to multiple customers. This is a one-time change. You cannot go back again. So be careful. And that's why we pop up a message to say, you have to be careful. If you're doing this, you cannot go back again. After enabling this, you cannot use the customer split anymore, but instead you can, on each of the specific tasks, designate another customer to pay. So I could open up the task card for this task, and we will see that there are now additional fields for invoicing in here. And we can also specify who will be the customer. And I'll pull that up a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. So we can say not the default customer, but another customer. And so we could say instead of a datum corporation, this specific task will be paid by Tray Research. So you can switch this out. And this, of course, also means there could be other payment terms for that one task, and even a ship to code if you're working with ship to codes for construction sites, etc. So you can break up your project into multiple parts, each of them having a different customer paying for them. Then we have a small change on the subcontract. Subcontract is, of course, when you have subcontractors and want to create a subcontract agreement with them about the work they are providing for a specific project or contract. If I create a new subcontract for a project and select a vendor for it, the change is that I will now get the currency code of that subcontractor by default, and that currency code will be used for all the work performed to this subcontract. So when I create lines on my subcontract down here, I will see that the amounts that I put in, they are now in that currency code. So that makes a big difference. In the past, subcontracting was always done in local currency code, and then after creating invoice, you could change the currency code, but there was always a conversion factor. And with this, when I have my lines and I put in my number of units, the rate that I put in is now no longer in local currency, but it is in the foreign currency. That's also why we added the local currency fields. So you can see in this case, $100 converts into another number of my local currency. So big change if you need to work with subcontractors who are invoiced in different currencies. The last enhancement is for the split week billing with salaried employment and true salary cost. That's a bit of a mouthful. And I'll not demo this today. It is a specific scenario where if you have resources and you're costing them out at true salary cost, and you have a setup where you have weeks that are split in the month, there could be a scenario where they do not balance, and the number of hours spent in one part of the week, which is prior to the month end versus the one after the other, is proportionally higher. And so you would like to ensure that that true salary cost is proportioned out. And for that, we now have some maintenance functions to do that. If you're interested in that function, please reference the documentation. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact support and we can help you out. But it is a very, very specific area. But of course, if you're working with true cost, the cost must be true as well. Moving on to fund management, we have a number of changes to make things easier. One of them is when you're working with funding and some of that funding is not needed, or for another reason you need to repay some of that funding. Previously, that was only possible by making reversed entries in the cash receipt journal. Now we allow the payment journal as well. So if I make a line in a payment journal here, I can now go in and say, I would like to make a refund for a customer, because our customers are essentially funders. And let's make a refund for, let's say, $100. 100, and I can select what funding commitment that applies to. And this is now allowed. I can say I want to refund a part of this grant, which was for $1 million, and that's what I want to apply. So a refund, and then I can use all the regular functions that we can have from a payment journals with actually making the payment. You cannot do that out of a cash receipt journal. This also touches upon the concept of what is a funder. And in the past, we considered all customers as potential funders. We have changed that slightly in that saying on each customer, you must mark them as being a funder. And that makes it possible to filter out the customers that can act as funders versus customers that are not funders, especially if you are running an operation where you have some funders, but you also have a number of more regular customers where you're providing consulting services or something else. So that is a separation. And now in the list where you can look up funders, we of course filter by that as well. So looking up in the funders list here, I now only see these two which are marked as funders. When we're working with funders, we can have commitments and other which have a date on them. This is what we call the effective date, and there can also be an expiry date on when those funds can be used. So in the fund ledger entries, we have had for a long time the date fields for effective date and expiry date. Now, these are set when the commitment is posted in the system, but sometimes an agreement can be reached to change those dates. And now we allow you to go in and change those and say, well, if then maybe there wasn't an expiry date, we say now there is an expiry date, you can put it in, or you could change an existing date and say, well, we move this forward or move that backwards. So to update this. A bit like how you can change a due date on a customer ledger entry. Lastly, we have added some extra functionality to our fund allocations. And looking at our fund allocation list here, we can see there is now a fact box with notes if you have additional notes to put on your fund allocation. So a number of enhancements in the fund allocation area. And that wraps up what I can show today. As Laura mentioned, there is also an enhancement in Pryme AP Automation, where the default settings when you set up a new company are much enhanced, making the setup even easier and faster. We're really focusing on short and efficient onboarding for our apps at the moment. But there will be upcoming demos, and try to join one of those if you haven't seen AP Automation. It really is super fast and efficient and easy to use. This ends the part of Keep Up with Pryme, where we talk about new features. And I will now switch gears. And those who want to stick for the second part, you're very welcome to. But there will be no more new features. I will show some of the features we have around sales price processing. We have had a number of questions on how that works in practice, and I'll try to show some of those features. So feel free to stick and see that if you want. Otherwise, this is the end of the new stuff. So getting into the sales price processing, we need to have some sales prices. And sales prices, when I say sales prices, I talk about the prices on resources that are used for projects. So it is a kind of narrow scenario. But on a project, we can have prices, and of course, prices can also be generic. So if I open up a project here with some pricing on it, we can look at the resource prices, and we can see that there are specific prices set for this project with specific rates, and they are set for a certain date when they apply from. And we can of course add additional prices, or we can make new prices from a certain date. So we could say here that from July 1st, there is a new rate that applies to consultants. And the new rate for consultants is, again, a fixed rate, which is now, let's say, 85. And so we can add additional rates in here. This is one way of changing the rates. Changing the rate here does not change the rate on any existing entry. So even if I set this to be applicable from an earlier date, let's say we say from January 1st, there was a new rate on technicians, just as an example. So technicians, they have a new rate from January 1st. That is a long time in the past, and now the rate is 99 for those, but existing entries are not updated, even though I set a date in the past. So what I can do is I can run an update function if I want to update existing entries. So there's an option to do that. That doesn't happen automatically. I could also do a more batch-wise updating of my prices. Now I'm looking at project prices, but that could even be for price lists. So we have a number of features in here for price maintenance, and you have to be a bit specific on what we're looking at because there could be multiple steps. We have the sales price maintenance journal, and that allows you to update sales prices directly. So what I can do here is I can calculate resource sales prices. And so I could say I would like to look at effective from today. I would like to change the amounts by a percentage. The percentage I would like to use is 70% price increase. And I would like to do that for the prices on project number 5. So now it will suggest me new prices based on that. So I get some new rates in here. And they are increased by a certain percentage. Now here I made a bit of a mistake because I didn't set any filtering on. I only wanted to update the newer prices. Here I had for consultants my old pricing and my new pricing, and it's actually adjusting both the old and the new. So in this case, because I didn't do the filtering to begin with, I have to do a little bit of cleanup. And that's part of the process here, that you will have to review and see what are we going to do with those prices, and are they actually good? Is there anything we need to adjust on those prices? So I will delete this one as well and say this is my new price list. And then I can even go in and say I want to override some of that percentage-wise because 99.45, maybe we could make that 99.95 instead, and maybe this is 98.95 or whatever you would like to say. I say maybe this is just 115, whatever sounds better, or maybe this one. You can adjust the prices from in here. And then when you've done your adjustments, you can then apply that. That creates new prices on that project. So on our project, we should now see that we have new resource prices. So new resource prices are available in here. These are my new ones from July 1st. But again, this doesn't change what has already happened. It doesn't change my transactions. But what happens if I'm working with price templates? Maybe I'm not doing pricing directly on the project. So we have the concept of a price template. And I think we should actually start from the beginning here and look a bit on the setup of templates, and more specifically sales price templates. So the idea here is I have a price template, and maybe this is a standard pricing template where I can make additional lines and say we have a price template from January 1st, maybe that's January 1st of 25. might make more sense. We're setting the price of a certain resource group, let's say consultants, on any project that we apply this template to a price of 99. So this is our new price list. Of course, it could be multiple lines. And this having a price template allows us to apply the prices to a project. So I can go in on this project, say, I would like to look at the resource prices. I don't have anything specifically set up, but I can go in and say, get template. I would like to add a template. I would like to apply my standard template. And now I've applied my template. So I now have these prices on my project. And this is where the updating becomes interesting, because if I now want to update my price on this project, I could use the process that I just showed, that I will update the price lines I have on a project. But I can take it a step further and say, I would like to update the template itself and then apply the changes from the template to all the projects that use this template. And so this is where you can use this in multiple steps. So you can say, I would like to update the sales prices. And the sales prices I would like to do is only templates. And again, I will set a new effective date. Let's actually do that as August 1st. Again, I will change by an amount. Let's change by 13%. And I can say I would like to have those in the standard template. Those are the prices I would like to update. So I'm now updating the template itself and applying those changes. That doesn't change anything for any of the projects. It is just a template. Opening up again the sales price templates, I can see that on my standard template, I now have an additional line with a price from August 1st being a bit more. So this is my updated template. But again, that doesn't update my projects. So how do I update my projects? This is where the next step comes in, because I can go in and use some of these update functions. So I could say, update prices from template. This will update the prices on the project from the templates that I just updated. So I can load price list updates, and I'll say I'll just take it from my standard template and say OK. And it says delete this additional line. That was the original line I had. Then add that line again. You could say these two changes, they cancel each other out, but that's the way it works. And then add the new line for the new price. Now, I could just remove these two lines because they cancel each other out, but it doesn't actually make any difference. And for such a small change, maybe it's not really worth it. But if I'm doing big price updates, this could make a big difference. So I can apply those price updates, and that will update those prices on the projects where the templates are used. So I should now see new prices on my demo project. And that was a wrong demo project. Was it this one? Yes. So we now see that the original price was 199 and now it is 111.87. And so how does it know where that price is coming from? That's because there's a field in here saying where does this price originate from. So that is the last step. The additional thing you could do is if the price update is made too late. So I'm updating prices and I have to make a retroactive change to my existing transactions. I can invoke the last update step we have, which is the transaction maintenance journal. In here, I can load transactions and I could say effectively from let's say January 1st of 2025, I would like to take the prices. I can optionally say even the transactions that are on open sales invoices, so they're in mid-process, I would like to include. Usually I don't want that, but you can do that. And then I can say, is that for one project or is it for multiple projects? You must specify a project filter of some kind. If you don't, you will get an error message, just to avoid somebody updating all the prices by mistake. So I could go in and say specifically it should be certain projects. If I really want to do every single project, I could go in with an asterisk, and then it will take all of them, but be aware this could be a lot. And then it will calculate, it will look at all the different projects and look at if there are any transactions that need updating. And in my case, there wasn't any transactions, but if there were any, then they would be listed here and I could post those price adjustments. And again, I can review all the changes before I post them. That is the process around sales price updates. There is a lot of power and a lot of features in there, but you have to have a clear plan on how you're using your sales prices. Are you setting them specifically on each project, or are you using templates? Because if you use templates, you can then update the templates and the templates can update the projects.